You've got questions, we've got answers. Welcome to the Therapist Question Box, where trauma-trained therapists tackle real questions from real people. I'm your host, Lindsay Schiss, bringing you grounded insights you can actually use, brought to you by Therapy Utah. Back to another episode of the Therapist Question Box. We are here to tackle and answer your tough mental health questions. So ask away. Today I have with me Nicole Hooker. Nicole, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Nicole is a new therapist here at Therapy Utah, and so we want her to introduce herself and tell us a little bit about you. Nicole, tell us something that maybe not total resume, but tell us a little bit like what would we like to know about Nicole that we don't know?
Good question. I'm a Utah native, born and raised, but I lived in the South for a handful of years. I went to grad school down there, lived in Georgia, lived in Mississippi. So I'm a little Southern at heart as well. So love that. Been a therapist for about 5 years and love it.
Nice. I love that. So tell me, what do you do for fun?
That's a good question. I feel like my life is my work.
It's therapy?
That's a bad sign.
Yeah.
No, I love football. I'm a big football fan. So my birthday's in the fall. Football, it's just family fun.
And who's your team?
BYU Cougars.
Okay.
Yes. I know that's controversial because they do really well until they don't.
You know what? It's like with any team. You have to really just be in for the long haul, right? So,
committed.
There you
loyal,
go.
For sure.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, we're happy to have you on.
Thank
and
you.
Today, I'm excited to talk about the question, which is really understanding our family patterns and maybe why we have the family patterns we do and how they show up. And so we're going to jump right into the listener question, and here's what it is. Why do familiar relationship patterns feel hard to break even when we know they're hurting us? So really honest question.
Very honest.
I appreciate that honesty of that listener. So tell me your thoughts when you hear that. Why are they hard to break when we know they're hurting us? Why do we do things that hurt us?
Well, this is complicated, and I want to treat it with a lot of sensitivity because families come with a lot of loaded emotions. I mean, I think about the little kid on the playground that's like, I can bully my sibling, but the second I see someone else do it, I'm like, pumping up, no, don't touch them. And so families are really tricky. They come with a lot of complicated emotions, I think is just the best way to say it. And so when we talk about families, sometimes talking to other people about our families brings some defensiveness, some loyalty, even though we're like, wait a minute, I know that I shouldn't be defending them in this. And so they're just tricky. I think the most important thing to understand about families is family systems come with this kind of magnetic force, that we have family relationships that really pull on traditional patterns. We like things to be predictable. We like things to be consistent. We want them to feel easy for our brain. Our brain likes things to be really predictable, I guess, not to overuse that word, but.
So it's like our brain knows something, and even if it's maybe not the best thing, it's what it knows. So then it goes to what it knows even more than it would go to what's the best thing, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's so interesting because, again, we've learned that as therapists, and yet we sometimes do that exact thing. Like, we know that this is not as good as it could be, but doing the other or the opposite is hard. I give clients the idea of saying, okay, when you go to the store from your home, you probably go the same route every single time. And so if I were to tell you to go a completely different route just for fun, like, it would be a pain. It would take some effort and energy. And our brain wants to do what's easy and predictable and quick. So it kind of gives that same understanding. Like,
there's comfort there.
There's comfort. It makes sense, right? Yeah. So our listener, I hope our listener understands that this is not a character fault
At all.
This is our brain doing something that's predictable and easy. Good. Okay. So let's go back to understanding, how does our nervous system pull us towards what's familiar? When you said that, there's like, why? What does it look like? I mean, again, there's predictability, but is there anything else that our nervous system is seeking, and why we go back there?
Well, when we're born, we rely completely on our parents. We call that attachment in the therapy world, that we cannot provide anything for ourselves. We can't feed ourselves. We can't meet our needs. We can't even soothe ourselves. We don't know how to rock ourselves. We can't do anything. And so there's this magnetic pull that says I'm completely dependent on this person to connect to me to meet my needs. And so not only are we like, this feels familiar, but I'm dependent on my safety. My survival is based on how I interact with the people around me. And it stays that way for so many years until we're capable adults that can go make our own choices. And by then, you think about it, we've had 18 years of second after second after second interactions with people that we've now programmed ourselves, intentionally or mostly unintentionally, to respond to relationships in certain ways, knowing that if I do this certain behavior or if I do this certain emotional reaction, I can get or avoid something that's uncomfortable or what I need.
For sure. But here's also the interesting thing is you're saying that we really don't know that it's weird, or it's maybe like there's this pattern that's like crazy or dysfunctional until sometimes you're out of it. And then when you're out of it, you're like, whoa, wait a minute, what was going on here, right? So what would you suggest to people, like our listener is out of it, but for people that are like, maybe I'm in a dysfunctional situation, maybe there are things, but because maybe it feels off to me, but I'm in it and I'm not entirely sure. What would you suggest?
I mean, I think creating a little bit of distance to create even elements of being able to separate. One thing you said that's really important is, I think I feel like it's off. One of the things that happens in families is we turn off that sensor that tells us, like, this must be not okay. Because we're like, no, it's my mom, it's my dad, it's my brother, it's my sister, whatever. Like, they wouldn't do that, or they don't mean that. And so we desensitize ourselves from our own natural kind of urges that say, hey, that's not good.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's really important what you just said in this part of the discussion, is because I think it gets confusing. Like, this feels off, but it's my brother, it's my, as you were saying, it's my mom, it's my dad. They would never do that.
Right.
But the truth is, if things are happening that shouldn't be or that are dysfunctional, like, there's a knowing inside of us, right? And so to pay attention to that. But often as children, like, so what if they do pay attention to it? What are they going to do, right? I mean, and I hate to say that, but the truth is that's often the case, right? So,
which is why our body turns it off, is because sometimes we know, but then it's super painful to sit with that awareness, because it's like, ooh, now I'm talking about the person that I have to keep spending time with, or the person that I do love, because we talked about family relationships are complicated. Rarely do we just go, I hate you, I want nothing to do with you. And if we do, it's usually driven by pain, which is love. And so it's hard to have to sit with that awareness. And so our brain, it's a feature where people will talk about, like, I don't remember childhood. It's like, yeah, that's a feature of your brain turning that off to say, I need to survive, and I want to stay connected to the people that I love.
Totally. And you look at that instead of as a deficit, it's an adaptive mechanism, right?
Yeah.
It's your brain helping you out and protecting you. And so instead of, oh, this is wrong with me, it's actually like, congratulations, your body did something to protect you. And this was the way that you survived in an environment that wasn't safe or wasn't conducive to you being a whole person. So this is the way it had to happen.
Well, that's the thing. Like, our bodies are incredibly adaptive because they'll adapt in that circumstance. But then when we keep trying to apply that principle outside in other relationships, the forces of those relationships will highlight those same patterns for us and go, this doesn't work.
Okay.
And so we can trust it on both ends, where we can look at it on the front end and be like, that helped me get through something that was really hard. And also, like, the relationships are going to give me feedback in ways that are sometimes painful, but that will help us still understand, like, this doesn't work anymore. Excellent. And so it's learning to teach. Like, our bodies are incredibly adaptable and gifted to help us adjust.
I love that, because it's on both ends, right? So look at these relationships, and when there's something that's like, oh, something's being highlighted here, there's a pain point that keeps being poked, or I'm responding in ways that are not really appropriate for what's going on, maybe I should consider that. So if a person is in that situation and they're in a relationship and they keep having these things happen where they're like, what is going on? Is this me? Is this them? Like, what is going on?
Right.
What would you suggest?
I think to just be curious. Always, because I rarely with one situation can you get the answers you're looking for. And so if you're like, is this me, is this them? Well, it's probably both, because there's always a blend of things.
Yeah.
But if you see it repeated over and over and over again, and that's the value of something getting highlighted again and again and again, is because you might be able to write it off once or twice or 5 or 25 times, but then you'll get to the point where it's like, okay, I did this with my roommate, I did this with my coworker, I did this with my boyfriend, my girlfriend, whatever, and now I'm like, okay, no, this is a me thing.
And that's hard.
So hard.
It's so hard to
It's
look at
so
ourselves in the mirror and be like, something's going on with me. It's not, I can't point the finger elsewhere. I can't look outside. I've got to look at me and say, what is going on that this keeps showing up for me? And yet, if you're willing to do that and step into some curiosity, that's where you can actually start breaking some of these traditional patterns that have happened in families that are not serving you.
Right.
But that takes a lot of courage.
I mean, we can't emphasize how much courage that takes. This is so hard, because oftentimes what you meet first is this: if I accept that it's me, then I maybe am accepting that nobody else is going to want to be in a relationship with me. That's most often the fear. And so if I start to look at this could be me, then I got to be able to make sure I can do things to change that. But it's scary to go there, which is why we have therapists to be like, hey, you don't have to go there by yourself. Let me walk there with you.
Yes, and have support along the way, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes opening up that, it feels so vulnerable, like you said. Like if this is really me, oh my gosh, will people want to be with me? Am I still worthy of love and belonging?
Right.
And when those are put into question, oh my gosh, everything feels hard and scary. So to have somebody that's saying, no, it's okay, and it makes sense. Because look at some of the patterns. Look at your history. Look at what has happened. You make sense. It's okay, right? Like normalizing that.
Everything makes sense in context. One of my favorite TV shows ever is This Is Us.
Oh, me too. I didn't
love
know
it.
It is the best.
I love it so much. I
Yes.
tell you, I'm a nerd when it comes to this stuff.
Okay.
One of the reasons I love it is because it shows, like, flash forward, return back to childhood. It shows all the different parts of people's lives. And one of my favorite characters in the show, his name is Kevin. He's a triplet of, he's got 3 siblings. They're all born on the same day. One's been adopted. One has an eating disorder. So he's kind of just the kid that's forgotten. And you see him working through a lot of his own stuff throughout the entire course of the show. He struggles with addiction. He struggles with, he'll have sexual addiction, alcohol addiction, all kinds of different unhealthy coping patterns. But he's running from himself the whole show. And he lost his dad early as a teenager. And so he's running from so much pain. And you'll watch him try to figure life out, and he struggles to do that. And so he's in and out of relationships. In fact, there's one relationship with a girlfriend that he had when he was really little that he wants so desperately, but he can't figure out how to get there until he works through some of his stuff. And unfortunately, he doesn't get her, but he does work through other stuff to get a relationship that he really is satisfied with. But it's hard.
Gosh, that's such a good example. And what's interesting about Kevin in This Is Us is that he had some real strengths that covered up some of these challenges, right? Like he was this good-looking, successful actor, right? And so he could kind of rest on that, and it kind of got him by for a while. But underneath it, it was like, oh no, there was addiction and major insecurity and problems with relationships over and over again. And so I think his character is amazing because you think about that and the way the world says, oh, this is what makes you successful. This is what makes you okay. He had all those things, but he had so much pain underlying all of it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm with you. So plug for This Is Us, right? I'm like, I need to watch it again. All the way through. I know that sounds crazy, but I probably should, because it was so brilliantly written as well.
Oh,
The characters
so
were amazing, and yeah.
Every storyline in there, I think everybody can relate in some form or fashion.
100%. I think that's why it's so good. So thank you for bringing that up. That just brought me some nostalgia. So excellent. So where do we begin to interrupt a pattern? You talked about curiosity. So once that has happened, I feel like that's the first step. What would you tell listeners where to go from there?
So I think it's a lot about understanding what need you're not getting met. So part of the curiosity is being curious about, why am I behaving the way that I'm behaving, right? So if we use Kevin's example from This Is Us, there's a scene in the show where he's in a pool and he starts to almost drown in this public swimming pool that he's in. His siblings are getting paid attention to. There's 3 kids and only 2 parents. And so mom and dad are focused on making sure that Randall, the adopted son, doesn't feel too excluded, and Kate, the sister, doesn't feel too excluded from her friends. And he's panicked in this pool alone. And so he's scared, and he's like almost drowning, screaming for help, but he's in public pool, nobody recognizes him, and he looks around and realizes nobody even knows that I'm feeling this way right now. And so he goes on this kind of mission, if you will, for the rest of his life to be like, I will be seen. You are not going to overlook me. So then he goes into performance, and he's on stage, and he's looking for the limelight. And so when you start to get curious about the patterns, you end up going back to these childhood wounds where you're like, I felt so overlooked. I felt dismissed. I felt unimportant. And then you can start to respond to, this actually wasn't about me. But it's not just telling your childhood self that. I think that can feel like a form of gaslighting, if you will, where you're just like, you're fine, it wasn't that big of a deal, mom and dad had other stuff going on. But when you can really go back to and attend to that need and say to your own self, like, I see you. Mom and dad didn't see you, but I can see you now. Then you can start to heal, and then you're not searching for, in unhealthy ways, those needs to get met elsewhere.
I love that. And such a great example again. So how would a person attend to those needs of their childhood, like where there's childhood wounding, right? And when you said that, I think it's really important to understand what you said, which is, gosh, you realize it actually wasn't about you. It wasn't that he wasn't loved and that no one cared. It was that his parents had chosen to pay attention to these other children for whatever reason. Right. But he felt like it was this direct, like, no one saw me, no one cared, right? So how would you go about doing that in therapy? What would that look like?
Well, I think we got to interject here just really quickly that it's not about mom and dad being bad parents either.
Oh, 100%.
Because I think so many times people think in either generation, the parents either think their kids go to therapy and learn about how bad a parent they have, or the kids go and it's like, mom and dad failed me, and that's why they don't want to talk about mom and dad, is because they often fear they're gonna be told that, like, your parents really messed you up, and it's not about that at all. It's about learning to go, hey, I think all of us have needs that are just really big, and we're all human in relationship with other humans, and sometimes those balls are gonna get dropped. And so you can have really good parents. That's another reason not to overemphasize This Is Us. But the parents in that show...
No, let's keep going with it. It's great.
those parents in the show are so good.
So good.
I think people actually, they would seem like model parents in a way. And yet they dropped so many balls.
But which is, again, why it's so relatable. Because good people in relationships, it's messy. We're dropping balls left and right.
Right.
Even as therapists, right? Of course, as therapists, it's like you have been schooled in this, and yet doing it in real life is a whole different ballgame. So I'm with you. I totally agree. It's that 2 things can be true. That you can have wonderful parents, and you can be hurt by wonderful parents.
Absolutely.
It's not one or the other. It's both.
Rarely is it one.
It's rarely one or the other, right? Both can be true. So I appreciate that you said that, because I think sometimes people are afraid of therapy because it's like, oh, you're going to turn them against this person, or they're going to dig up this old wound. And the truth is, no, it's actually holding space for both, not diminishing your own experience,
right?
But holding space for your experience and holding space for it's messy and it's hard. And most of the time, people are doing the best they can with what they've been given, right? So good. So,
which ironically is the place you start. Because then when you start to, because sometimes just understanding that, like just in the last week or so when I've started to get new clients, I'm new at this clinic.
Yeah.
And so having clients, sign up with me for the first time, I'll see that they're a lot more transparent in their paperwork about what's going on. And then when they talk with me in person, it gets a little bit more scary. And so sometimes bridging that is like the first step, is being able to say out loud our experience without feeling like we're criticizing our parents unfairly or trying to work through things. And so I like what you said about 2 things can be true at the same time. I describe that as like both and. Sometimes we talk about things as like either or. It's this or it's that. And that's not the case most of the time in life. And so it's learning to be able to be like, I can love my parents, or love my whoever it is that we're in a relationship with, and also honor that they're imperfect and they did things that have hurt me. And I've adapted to those relationship patterns in ways that are now still hurting me.
I think the and instead of the or, when I learned that, It's not one or the other, but it can be both. Two things. I've hold my fists like this with clients. I will hold it and just say two things are true. Like it's not one is weighted higher than the other, but two things, both of these fists can be right at the same level. They're both true, right? And I think when I understood that from a personal perspective, it was so empowering because all of a sudden it was like, hey, your experience matters and their goodness matters. And both things are true. And I think before it's one or the other. And when you really can come to terms with that, I really believe that's where peace lies, because it's not invalidating, right? Because I think for a lot of people, it's no, we can't say the thing because then, I mean, they were good parents. That was a good partner. They were whatever, right? Yes. And the experience was painful. It's that idea of intention versus impact, and going back to that, like that often people's intentions are good, but sometimes even with the best intentions, we can impact people in ways that are painful. Yeah.
And that itself is such a journey.
Absolutely.
Right. And so there's a lot of grief involved in that, being able to go back to, okay, I can, because sometimes it's that I haven't allowed myself to be angry, which is what I think a lot of people see as, oh no, you're turning me against someone I love. It's like, no. There's just a lot of unexpressed anger that you didn't allow yourself to feel because you felt like it would threaten the relationship, that now is coming out. And so we hold space for a period of time for all of that anger. And you might be angry and you might go to this place of, nope, now I hate my parents, or now I hate my ex-spouse, or now I hate my whatever. It's not true. You're not going to stay there forever. And so I think trusting in that a little bit, to just be like, I'm going to be angry. And maybe I do need some space for a while as I honor my anger. Because anger is just one part of the grief cycle. Grief cycle's complex because it's not stage-like, right? We've moved back and forth through a lot of them. But anger is a place that we hang out for a little while. But then we move through that. And then we might be sad and feel, depressed or upset about things that happen. And then we move through that and we get all the different phases of grief.
I so appreciate that you said that, because I think sometimes we're afraid to actually sit in the discomfort of anger or the discomfort of sadness. And so then what do we keep doing? We keep, like our listener said, choosing people that are not helpful for us, that actually continue to perpetuate these problems. But when we can go through those processes and say, no, I am in grief and I'm experiencing anger right now, and I'm gonna be okay being angry for a minute, and then I'm gonna be okay being sad. Then that's when you can go, oh, I can actually heal this and start to move through and forward. Would you agree with that?
Completely. And one of the things that I find is most frustrating for clients is the ones that are coming seeking healing are often 12 steps ahead of themselves, where they're like, I know where I want to get, I'm just not there yet. And so then they have a hard time sitting in that anger or sitting in that sadness, because they're like, no, I want to get there. I know I can, I know I want to, and they're determined. But then they rush these processes and I'm so guilty of this.
We all are. We don't want to be uncomfortable. Are you kidding me?
I'm like, let's hurry this anger phase out. Like, I'm done with this.
It's horrible.
Yeah,
exactly.
And we go back to that scary, like I'm having to face things that are so scary. And sometimes we're afraid of how intense our emotions are. Like the anger is so scary. The sadness is at a depth that it's just so scary. That's where the support of a therapist comes in, to be able to have someone sit with you in that and say, you feel so alone right now in that situation, but you're not alone in the room. I'm with you.
So good. As you're saying this, I just keep thinking, the truth is on the other side of this is where peace lies.
Completely.
It's where peace lies, but you have to be willing to go through those stages and steps that can feel really scary and uncomfortable. And as you talked about at the beginning, the attachment issue, right? When we worry about, these are potential attachment figures. And gosh, if I'm really looking at this with honesty, that might threaten this attachment to this person that matters so much to me. And that feels really hard, in addition to just looking at ourselves and acknowledging what has happened to us in the past. But truly, when we can go, it's like you can't go under it, you can't go over it, you got to go through it. Like you've got to go through it. And that's what you're saying, is going through these steps. That's when we get to the other side and we can become our highest and best self, and then choose somebody in that with that lens.
Yes.
Right?
Okay. Yeah. Another media example of this dynamic you're talking about. I like the movie Encanto because it shows so much of the family dynamics. You talked about like there's so much relief on the other side,
Yes.
and there is. But the thing that's true before that is things often get worse before they get better.
Almost always.
And so it's nice to be able to see in a movie, you got an hour and a half or 2 hours of like, okay, let's watch this play out. And being able to see that dynamic dance all the way through where there's a lot of denial in the beginning. You see these characters that are like wanting to resist. Nope, that's not happening. I mean, I think the house is falling apart. The magical house has stairs that move and things. And there's like kinks. It's not working as well like it used to. And things are, and you see everybody be like, no, that's not happening. Kind of ignoring it, denial. You have one family member in the beginning, it's Bruno, trying to be like, hey, this isn't working. And what they just exile him.
We don't talk about
No,
Bruno.
we don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
We don't want to hear it,
Yeah.
right? Until it just keeps getting worse and getting worse and getting worse until Mirabelle's there and she's like, hey, I think I'm seeing some things, and it's bad enough now where they can't keep ignoring it. But then when they start to talk about it, it does. You see the fear in all of them. Oh, crap, what if I admit that I can't make things perfect all the time? What if I admit that I'm not strong enough to carry all the family burdens? What if you see all that fear play out, and it does get worse? You know, things escalate and things break down, and it doesn't always work out. But then at the end, when they start to go, oh, it's actually freeing to make an imperfect thing and to not have to be the one carrying everything.
Totally.
And to be normal. And then Bruno ultimately gets reaccepted because we can now tolerate.
We can now
that.
talk about Bruno. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is the truth, though. In a movie, we know it's an hour and a half. It's 2 hours, and we can see this nice conclusion.
Right.
In our own life, we don't know how long that's going to be and how that's going to impact the relationship and how long we're going to be, and I call it the messy middle. How long we're going to be in this spot of like, I don't know. This is hard. This is heavy. And the discomfort of that, I think sometimes people shy away from that and say, no, thank you. I'm not going to do that. But again, it's on the other side is where there is peace and again, wholeness. I mean, that's what I keep thinking is it's wholeness. But we don't have a timeline for that. Like I can't tell you, hey, we're going to do this and this is how long it's going to take. And this is the path and the plan. And in 2 months, you're going to be great. No. Like I can't guarantee that. It's usually long, right? And yet, I would say this from the bottom of my heart, and I would imagine you would too. Like it's so worth it. That's why we do the work we do. Yeah.
Well, and I wouldn't do it any other way, right? I heard
either.
somebody talk about therapy once that like we're the worst car salesman in the world because we're selling the worst, the worst news, and it's like we're trying to get people to buy this understanding that like, hey, you gotta sit in this thing you've been running from for years, because it really is yucky. But we wouldn't do it. Like we're not just sadistic out trying to cause all this pain. It's because we know that it's worth it on the other side.
Absolutely.
And most of the time it's worth it in ways we can't predict.
That's right. And I would also say that most of us, I teach right now, and I teach therapists that are becoming therapists. So they're in the process of becoming a therapist. And often people will say, gosh, therapists have often been through a lot of stuff. Like they always seem to have a story. And I said, that's because we are often wounded healers. And I think there's a greater sense of capacity, compassion, and understanding when you've had your own lived experience that you look at things different. You look at people differently. And it makes you, uniquely skilled to actually walk beside people and be their Sherpa as they're going through some of these messy middle stages.
Completely.
Yeah.
I would relate to that a ton. In fact, personally, I was going through graduate school when my parents got divorced. And I found myself in this messy middle where it was like, what do I do with all this? I'm at a place where I should have all these answers. And I wanted to just rush the process so fast. I wanted to go to my professors who were also therapists and be like, okay, do your magic, do whatever you got to do.
Help me. I want to get out of this.
What page on the textbook do I turn to? Where's the answer? And there just wasn't one that was fast. And it's been years now, but it was so hard. And I think when we know, like I like that you emphasize, like there's so much compassion there because we're living life right alongside you.
That's right.
We're in the messy with you.
Yeah. Therapists don't have it all figured out, for sure. Yeah. We are with you and walking beside you, for sure. So, Nicole, is there anything that we have not discussed today that you feel like is important for our listeners to understand?
It's a good question. The thing I just feel important to emphasize is just be patient with yourself. You often are making it up as you go. It feels that way. I joke all the time that even though I'm a professional in this field, that I'm making this up. You try some things, see if it sticks. I had a professor once tell me that it was like, don't worry about getting it wrong, because life gives you so many opportunities to try again. And families are especially that way. And so if you go and you show up at a family gathering and you're like, I was determined to make this change happen this time, and it doesn't happen, you're going to have another family gathering.
You will.
You're going to have another interaction.
Yep. And you're going to do well at some of them, and you're going to be messy in some of them as well,
Yes.
right? In fact, as you said that, and because we've been talking about movies, there's a song on Dear Evan Hansen, and it's called, I don't know what it's called, but the words are, I'm just making it up as I go. And it's the mom that's saying, does anybody have a map? Does anybody have a map? Like, I'm just making this up as I go. And I think, gosh, we all are doing that to a certain extent, because we're all in different phases of life, and we've never done this phase of life before with these circumstances, with this history, right? And
Which is scary and freeing.
Totally.
Right? When you realize, like, I remember, I'm 33 years old. I'm not that old. But as I start to get older and you start to realize, like, the people that you've relied on for so long are just making it up, that's kind of scary. But then when you realize, like, oh, they're making it up, that gives me permission also to make it up.
Totally.
And so it's one of that both and.
Yep.
Scary and freeing at the same time.
It's the and. I can give you grace, and then I can offer and receive grace myself. I can give myself grace as well.
Exactly.
I love that. Well, Nicole, what a great conversation. I am like, you are awesome. Really, you have great insights, and I love the discussion. And just really, I think it brought so much normalcy to understanding why we choose people that maybe don't serve us, why these family patterns keep showing up in our lives until we really decide, okay, it's time to look in the mirror. It's time to do something about it. So thank you so much for your insights. Thanks for being here. And Therapy Utah is lucky to have you. It's awesome to get to know you more. And thank you, those of you that listened today. We are hopeful. And I really, after this conversation, not just hopeful, but I really feel that this is something that every one of us can use. Not just some people you may know, but every single one of us have family dynamics that have not always served us well. And so I hope you will give this a listen and a second listen, because it is such important information. And that, like we talked about, that it's not going to be this quick, easy fix, but on the other side is wholeness and peace and healing. And as we talked about, it's worth it. So thanks again, Nicole, and thank you for joining us. And until next time, take care. That's a wrap for today on the Therapist Question Box. I'm Lindsay Schiss. Thanks for listening. And remember, every question you ask is an opportunity to learn and grow. Brought to you by Therapy Utah.
Hey, this is Kathy Kinghorn. I'm an owner at Therapy Utah. If you'd like to book with one of our trauma-trained therapists, go to www.therapyutah.org. Thanks for listening.